And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Dawg Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harris Reno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. Episode 140. Our third co-host, Kobe Pierce. Kobe Pierce is not here with us tonight. Sadly, something popped up later this evening, so he will not be with us tonight. He will be with us. I assume everyone will be here for Sunday's episode. Over there at 7:30 live here on the Dawg Talk podcast. We will have football games to review and to react to, and we will know Georgia's opponent come this Sunday. And Dan, in the spirit of bowl season / the holiday season, which, hey, it's the Christmas time in college football because we have all these football games being played on different days a week because it's the holidays, and we have Christmas coming up. So in the spirit of Christmas, Dan, I put together a surprise blind draft to kick off the show. Just for you, buddy. So, Dan, today's blind draft topic is stocking stuffers. Now, I am going to give you a list of 5 stocking stuffing items, stuff you can put in the stockings, and you're going to have to rank them 1 to 5. Now, for folks who have not been with us for a blind draft, Dan does not know what the category is or what the item is. He is ranking these blind, and he cannot change his picks, cannot change where he ranks them. So whatever he says first stands. Dan, we will start at once I put these rankings up. We're going to start with Kit Kats.
Kit Kat, the candy bar?
The candy bar. Yeah. So these are candies, full transparency. Stocking stuffing candies.
Okay, so I am not a how does it? Kit Kat is a bar that I will go on little streaks with where I have a craving for Kit Kat and I will seek it out for a while, but then I'll go away from it for a long, long time. I will put that at number 3. I feel good with that at 3. Listen, a good Kit Kat every once in a while is not a bad candy. It's just a little wafer. I mean, I like chocolate, so
there you go. Next one, Reese's Cups. Or Reese's in general, one of the two.
No, Reese's Cups is fine. I don't think you're gonna have this other candy in there that's my absolute favorite, so I'm gonna put Reese's Cups at number 1.
Oh, I'm curious. All right, well, shoot, I hope I have what you like. Well, damn. All right. Next one. This is the holiday festive one. Candy canes.
10.
Next one. Starburst.
I like Starburst, bro. I just have a feeling that you have Snickers in here. Damn it, boy.
I don't know. Do I?
Put a Starburst at number 2.
See, I didn't know, so I was curious on that one. I was curious because I know Dan has kids, so I was like, okay, he definitely knows what they are, but I'm like, does Dan like them or not? I'm not sure. Next one, Dan. Last one. M&M's. A classic.
Oh, I'm good at 4. Yeah, like I'm not. I like peanut M&M's. Regular M&M's I really don't like. I don't not like them. There's the only thing on this list that I don't like is candy canes. I don't like them. I don't like peppermint.
Not even like the flavored candy canes.
I think my wife got some like Starburst candy canes one time, and like the cherry one was really good. Like it's not. I don't have a problem sucking on them or anything like that. It's just I don't like the peppermint.
Interesting. See, I like the flavored candy canes, but I think I'll ride with you on this one. I think Reese's Cups is number 1 for me of the 5. Yeah, I think you nailed it here. I really do. What was your number 1? What's your favorite candy?
Nutrageous.
I've never heard of that.
It's like peanut butter, chocolate caramel, peanuts all mixed together. Like it's Nestle or it's like Reese's Nutrageous or whatever. It's freaking amazing. Every time you go to the gas station to get one though, they're always melted in the wrapper because it's just like caramel wrapped in chocolate with peanut butter and peanuts on the inside. Yeah, but Nutrageous is my number 1. I used to love Snickers, but I got really burnt out on Snickers because I ate Snickers so much.
That's like the common. I think that and Kit Kats are like the two things I see in stockings all the time. I feel like, and M&Ms, and obviously I haven't seen many candy canes in my lifetime in stockings, but those are the favorite decoration for Christmas. Or one.
Allison stuffed all of ours with the like the foot long Tootsie Rolls because we love we are a Tootsie Roll loving family.
I should have included that one in there.
Yeah.
Dang. All right. We'll miss opportunity. All right. From the holiday season to the bowl season, we have two hot topics today, courtesy of our guy, Dan Kiley. I love the hot topics because Dan usually comes up, and by usually, I mean like 99.9% of the time, some really good hot topics. Dan, I don't know about your strategy on these two, but I didn't really give me as much thought. I'm just like, okay, spur of the moment.
Sure.
I'm
Yes.
going to shout something out.
That's the point.
So question number one. Favorite bowl / postseason moment from the past. And when we say postseason, we're talking, obviously, this can include playoff or your regular bowl game.
Right. So I think the natural reaction here would be to go just something Georgia related. I mean, listen, Sony walking it off. Any one of those are really cool, right? But we've talked about those a lot. So I'm going to go outside of Georgia. And I'm going to say Vince Young scoring the touchdown against USC. Ooh. That was probably up until here recently where Georgia's had so many crazy moments in bowl games, like all the lists, like the 5 best bowl game wins or whatever. Like Georgia has overtaken a lot of those, but the one you always see up there, and I remember watching it live, and if I'm not mistaken, Keith Jackson was doing the call, and God almighty, Vince Young scores that touchdown, and that USC team should have won so easily. But yeah, for me, the greatest bowl moment, not Georgia related, was that. That was incredible.
Hard to disagree with you there. A lot of people say that's one of the greatest plays of all time by one of the greatest players of all time. Dan, I feel kind of, I guess, millennial here. And not even millennial. Probably the next generation down. Gen Z, I think I am in. My favorite moment, and this is just the first thing that pops in my mind, Dan, the Pop-Tart reveal at the Pop-Tart Bowl this past year. I don't know about you. What? I was locked in to see the Pop-Tart pop out of the toaster after the bowl game last year. That's just one of the first things that popped into my mind.
Damn it, boy.
The next one is Mac Brown getting poured mayonnaise on him all over him. Ew. That one after he beat South Carolina that one's pretty so I like mayonnaise on sandwiches. I don't like mayonnaise in my coffee, Will Levis, but I don't think I want mayonnaise dumped on me. No. That one was, those are the two that just pop. I don't know. Something about bowl games and like these gimmicks, I'm here for it. It's funny. Dang. Have you not seen the Pop-Tart reveal?
No, I haven't, but I love
you're gonna have to watch it this year.
I love that you had fun with it.
Yeah. Dan, the next one. Actually, I'll go first. You always
you go first.
Best individual bowl performance that you remember. All right, so I have a comedic answer and I have a serious answer. Serious answer first. Sony Michel in the Rose Bowl was absolutely amazing. And I know it's the low-hanging fruit because this is a Georgia show. But that dude, him and Nick Chubb together rushed for well over 200 yards in a hell of a game. One of the greatest Rose Bowls of all time. I love that game. I've watched it over and over and over. It's like a yearly tradition in this roof, under this roof, to watch the Rose Bowl. And honestly, the House of Highlights, I think that's the guy or the Harris Highlights, the guy that put together a 25-minute highlight reel of the game, another yearly tradition on my part. The comedic answer, Jameis Winston in the college football playoff game versus Oregon, I think it was a semifinal game, is my comedic answer. Jameis didn't play very well. Florida State didn't play very well. Marcus Mariota and that Oregon team were hell on wheels and just absolutely took it to Florida State that year. Dan, may not surprise you, I wasn't a big fan of Florida State growing up, just something about them. And I know you relate to me because you're not a big Jimbo Fisher fan. God, it's been so long since we've talked about Jimbo Fisher on this show, but that's my comedic best or greatest individual bowl performance.
So I know I stayed away from Georgia in the first answer that I gave, but for this one, I agree with you. Sony was incredible, but if you can remember back to the Belk Bowl, and that was not a good year for Georgia.
Oh, man.
Nick Chubb went absolutely bananas I mean, holy moly, did Nick Chubb announce his presence with authority in that game? I remember, so we were driving down to Florida to go visit Allison's parents for Christmas. And that game was on. I just remember we were stopped at the gas station and the radio was on. And there was a guy that was filling up his car at the same time. He's like, "Hey, what game are you listening to?" And I said, "I'm listening to the Belk Bowl, the Georgia Bulldogs." He's like, "Who in the hell is Nick Chubb?" I'm like, "He's our freshman running back." He's like, "Oh my God." And I remember, and Allison's like, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, "Some guy about Nick Chubb." But yeah, I'm sure there were some great performances by some other guys, but in just off the top of my head, recent memory, the one that just absolutely jumped out was Nick Chubb in that game because he, if I'm not mistaken, that was the greatest game he ever had as a Georgia Bulldog. I don't think he
I
had.
believe you're correct.
I mean, didn't he go for almost 300 yards?
Let me look up the stat. So I remember, and you've seen it too, because there's that screenshot that I see almost once every year of his stat line from that game.
It was absurd. It was like some NCAA stuff.
It was Dan's Road to Glory character stat line over there.
Yeah, no kidding. What was it?
33 carries, 266 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Told you it was almost 300 yards.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I forgot about that until you said Belk Bowl. Wasn't even in my mind. Credit to you there, Dan. I pulled up, so I was curious. I pulled up. I looked up greatest individual bowl performances, and I pulled up this list from Yardbarker, and I just wanted to look through them.
Yeah, sure. Be fun.
Like Johnny Manziel, the 2013 Cotton Bowl. I don't remember watching this game.
Anything Johnny Manziel did was worth watching. Anything he did.
You see that? You see that? What? 229 yards rushing. FBS bowl record for a quarterback.
Good God.
I remember watching this game. Ezekiel Elliott running for half a mile over there on Oregon. 246 yards. That's a CFP record, according to Yardbarker, on 36 carries. Believe, Dan, you know how old we are? Tom Herman was the OC over there at Ohio State that year.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Christian McCaffrey in the Rose Bowl. I remember watching part of this game. 176 yards rushing, 105 yards as a receiver, 368 all-purpose yards. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba broke this all-purpose yards record in that, howler of a Rose Bowl game a few years ago. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
Oh, that would have been another good pull.
Ooh, yeah, because he went insane that game.
I remember you had a nutty that day.
Next one. I didn't think about this one. Deshaun Watson in the 2017 National Championship, 36 of 56, 420 yards, and a first half rushing touchdown. Threw all 3 of his touchdown passes in the second half. Hunter Renfrow, the guy that was in college, so it's 40 years old, caught that individual touchdown pass that game. All right, we're gonna skip over that one. Ooh, Dan, another one. Joe Burrow, LSU Peach Bowl. Man, Joe Burrow in that playoff.
Points?
Yeah. Joe Burrow in that playoff, just period.
Yes.
That's an individual that just put up hellified performances. I think you're gonna like this next one. Justin Fields, Ohio State Sugar Bowl. We talk about Justin Fields' deep ball against, who was it? It was Clemson in this very game. I remember when he was going into when he was trying to get traded from the Bears. A lot of arguments were had, not between Dan and I, but just between social media on whether or not Justin Fields can get it done in Atlanta. And that one play where he hits, who was it? I forget who he hit for that big bomb. Is everyone's, I guess, thing. Here we go, Dan. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Holy crap. 573 passing yards from CJ Stroud. 15 catches for Smith and Jigba. 347 yards. What was the all-purpose yards by McCaffrey? It was 300 something. And we'll stop at that.
I just remember you absolutely flipping out about that. Like you sounded like you were like the talking box Jack thing that just would not stop.
I think we talked about in Jigba because Georgia played them the very next year in the Peach
23. Bowl. Is that the TCU game?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He broke, what was it? He broke a Vince Young record for rushing touchdowns and passing touchdowns in the game, or tied it. Incredible performance from Stetson. Hey, great way to end it off for this Georgia podcast. Dan, I thought, hey, let's just go ahead and look it up. Why not show it? Just something, because like you said, there's been so many.
Well, I just wanted us to get in the bowl spirit. We've been
Yeah.
breaking down the games. We haven't touched on a single one of these lower tier games, which is fine, and we don't need to do that. But I just wanted us to get in the bowl spirit because bowl games are in earnest, have started. And you know what? I mini rant. I hear a lot of people say they don't like these bowl games. Guys, this is the last bit of college football we're going to get all year long. And you know, I think part of the allure of college football is you get to see a lot of different plays, right? It's not just the same teams over and over again. So soak it up. I understand that they may not be your teams, but turn the games on, watch the games, make them relevant, enjoy them, because when football's over, we have a long 6 or 7 months or whatever it is before we get to have football again. So
Stoddard says
I noticed that. I did notice that there is not that many opt-outs this year. I have not seen a ton of opt-outs. So that's a great pull by you, Stod.
And what's crazy, Dan, if Shadur Sanders is playing a bowl game, everybody should play in a bowl game. I'm curious. I don't know. Has Travis announced whether or not he's playing? I assume he will.
Travis said he's playing at the Heisman Trophies.
Yeah.
He said, I got one more game to play.
We'll say it again. If Travis Hunter's playing, everybody should play. I'm with you, Dan. I don't care who's in, who's playing, who's not playing. I want to sit down and watch bowl games. And we will do that over the next few days. Dan, I watched a hell of a basketball game yesterday. UNC and Florida in that Jumpman challenge. And, you know, when they have these challenges, these conference v. conference challenges in basketball, it does kind of remind me of bowl games in football. It's kind of the equivalent here. Some marquee matchups. You know, and I guess for basketball, it's a little bit earlier in the year than late in the year. Dan, next up, we got a rant. We have a Dan rant today, and it's not college football specific or even related, although you could say this guy did play college football just last year, or at least a person within the rant played in college football last year. Dan, go ahead and let the people know how we feeling today. We angry? We passionate? Excited.
All right, so this is Atlanta Falcons related, so please don't leave us. It's going to be a mini rant. Dan is not going to go on a major tirade here. One of the things that I have been arguing with our friend group all year is that I didn't like the idea that you got Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. One or the other, right? If you're going to get Kirk Cousins, that's fine. Draft people that can help him. If you want the young quarterback, that's probably even better, because now you're going to have a really cheap quarterback and you can build out the roster. However, they did both. And my biggest fear when they did that was that the Atlanta Falcons, are such a poorly run franchise and such a weak franchise. I knew that they were not going to make this change because they didn't want to be embarrassed that they got it wrong. Whereas if it was a strong organization, when they realized that they had made a mistake with Kirk Cousins, that he was not the same player that he was, and that's not Kirk's fault. He's old and he's injured. We get it. It's part of life. That happens. Like, sometimes the decline is gradual and sometimes it's off the cliff. Kirk did a great job of keeping us alive. We were, I want to say 6-3 or something like that. Like, we were good with a 98% chance to go to the playoffs, or 93%, wasn't 98. It was 93% chance to go. We are now under 30% to go to the playoffs. We had lost footing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kirk Cousins went through a stretch of 5 games. They had 1 touchdown and 11 interceptions in 5-game span. Here's the deal, man. Like no quarterback in the history of the NFL has ever gone 5 games with a stat line that poor without a change being made. And my real problem, I guess I will give the Falcons credit that they actually did pull the trigger. I didn't think that and Harrison and I have had conversations, especially with Jeremiah and Jonathan offline, where I have been adamant that I didn't think the Falcons had enough balls to make the change. But, you know, my real issue was last night, or yesterday at 5:15, when he goes up there and he says, Kirk Cousins is our guy, da-da-da, whatever. And then 3 hours later, they announce it. And the reason they did that is because he's a coward, and he doesn't want to stand there and answer questions. And then the other important part to note is that we are the Atlanta media. The Atlanta media is not like New York or California or any of those other places where they will absolutely grill you. Okay, we don't have the personalities that they have up in New York City where they will absolutely rip you apart at the podium. They don't do that. We have a very soft media, but they are so poorly run and so just inept that they announce it after the press conference because he didn't want to stand there and answer questions. I mean, honestly, the change should have been made 3 or 4 weeks ago when they realized that the Kirk wagon had fallen apart. And like, all right, now the other thing, and this is the most important thing, and I've heard this talked about on local radio, and I've heard it in some other places as well, is now we're about to find out if he can play. And you better hope he can play, because if he can't play, you are strapped with a quarterback contract that's going to absolutely kill your cap situation. And then you would have a young quarterback who can't play. That would be the absolute worst possible scenario. And you wouldn't have egg on your face. You would have dog shit on your face. I mean, that would be really, really, really bad if you had a quarterback you can't afford and now you got a quarterback that can't play. So I think everybody is really, really hoping that Penix is able to play well. I do. I hope. And then if he can't, what have you been doing all year? Like, you've had nothing to do but to listen and watch and learn. He should be ready to play. It's all the other quarterbacks have played. They're doing well, and we're in, what is it, week 16 now, right? Because we've got 2 games left, and it's 18 weeks now. So I believe it's week 16. So you've had 15 weeks to get ready to play. Michael Penix Jr., it's your show now. You have talent. Everybody's seen it. There's talent on that roster. You just got to get the ball where it needs to go. So I'm rooting for you, buddy. But damn it, get it done.
Yeah, it's funny. I was not funny. I was listening to, I think it was a social media clip. Dan Orlovsky was talking about the change, and I want to say it was Dan Orlovsky. I think it was.
He's had a lot.
He was talking about. Yeah, he has. He was talking about when the Chiefs benched Alex Smith in favor of Patrick Mahomes, and he said when he talked to guys that were on that Chiefs team who were in practice and practice every day, they were like, "Yeah, we got our one. Like, we got our guy, the next guy in Patrick Mahomes." That was the vibes he was getting from people who were seeing Patrick in practice. And he said, while he didn't say, hey, the Falcons are like, hey, we got our guy in Penix. He did say he has heard he's been balling in practice. He's been playing well in practice, which is, I guess, a good sign in some sense. But as we know, there are practice all-stars, and then there are gamers. Will Penix, will his success on the practice field translate to the NFL game field? We'll see. I was pretty high on him coming out of college. I think the playoff run that he had was spectacular. The game versus Texas this year in the semifinal game was something in terms of his deep ball accuracy. If he can do anything nearly like that on an NFL field, I think it will be fun to watch the Falcons anyway. Here's a good point from Stoddard. I just hope fans don't overreact it for one game. Statement applies if he has a good or bad game. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a one-game sample size. Now, I think, sadly for Penix, the Falcons have kind of put him in a bad spot because they're a game back in the division. They have 2 games to get into the playoffs. So there will be ramped up pressure. But I am with you, Stoddard. Don't overreact. It's,
but they are playing the Giants.
Yeah.
So he gets the Giants at home and then Carolina on the road.
3 games left. Sorry, 3 games left.
And then the last one is Washington. I don't think we're beating Washington, and it doesn't matter which quarterback plays. So you've got to win 2 out of 3 here.
Washington should be a fun game. Washington should be a fun game, especially if Penix is playing well. That Washington game is going to be fun.
You're right. He could make it a good one. And, I mean, from what I hear, we're getting Michael Vick back, so.
I sent you that. Someone said, yeah, Michael Vick didn't learn he was started until he was at Costco. I was like, I'm sending that one to Dan. Dan, from NFL to college football playoffs, like we said at the beginning of this show, we will find out on Sunday who Georgia will play. in the quarterfinal at the Sugar Bowl. We will preview the Notre Dame Indiana game. And actually, let's just go ahead and get that one out of the way. Dan, you have family ties to Notre Dame.
I do.
And I will let you talk about that here in a moment. Is this, to me, my general feeling on this game? I feel like Notre Dame has no business losing this game. But there's just part of me that says it would be the most Notre Dame thing ever to lose this game.
Well, the most Notre Dame thing ever doesn't resonate with me because you all have a much different perspective of the program than I do.
True.
So full disclosure, and this is a Georgia podcast. I became a Georgia fan living down here, being indoctrinated by Georgia people. I was not born down south. I did not grow up a Georgia fan. I was a Notre Dame fan. Grandfather played football at Notre Dame. He is up on the roof in their athletic facility. You know, they have this angled wall with every player that's ever played on what team. Yeah, like my grandfather was a donor to Notre Dame every year. When he passed away, we got a handwritten letter from Lou Holtz. So Notre Dame was a big deal in my house. In the movie Rudy, where he says, "Hey, Mr. Rudiger, can we put on the Purdue game at halftime?" He said, "We only watch one team in this house." And that right, Rudy? And he said, "Yes, sir." That was me growing up. Yeah, I was ours. So I have a friend named Raul who put in the comments of one of our posts. He's like, "Shut the F up. You were a Notre Dame fan." Like, yeah, I was up until I was like a teenager, probably. But you know what? You end up going to a school. It changes things. So, yeah. Anyway, that's out of the way. But this game in particular, Notre Dame did lose to Northern Illinois, and that was a bad loss. I don't think there's anything that me or Harrison or anybody else that we would have on the show could say to excuse that loss. That's as bad as they come, right? But they did run the rest of the schedule that they had. They won out, okay? My biggest issue with this game is that Indiana has only played one real game, and they lost it. And they lost it to Penn State. And you already know how I feel about Penn State. I don't think they're very good either. And Jeremiah's 100% right, and I am absolutely shocked that he came in here with that comment because he hates Notre Dame as much as anybody. But you're 100% right. Notre Dame is not the same team. The offensive coordinator, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Harrison, you're good at this game. Who's the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame? But he and Riley Skinner, right? That's his name. I always butcher
Riley Leonard, but I do like the Riley Skinner nickname.
Damn it! Riley Leonard, they have gotten on the same page, and they are doing a great job. All right. Anyway,
Mike Denbrock's the OC over there, by the way.
So he has gotten on the same page with his quarterback. They are running the things that he wants to run. They are having a lot of success right now. They're turning into a really good football team. Also, it's going to be 26 degrees with snow. I can't remember the last time, and it may not have been that long ago, but I just haven't remembered the last time that Notre Dame played a home game with snow. So that might be pretty freaking cool. I think Notre Dame is much stronger than Indiana. I think Indiana's had a good run. I don't mean to disrespect Indiana. I think you and I both appreciate everything that they've been able to do this year. I don't think they're a very strong team. I think they've benefited from playing a really bad schedule, and they benefited from taking the entire James Madison starting lineup. So I didn't even know that was a thing, by the way, until they pointed it out on, CBS has the Big Ten now? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, yeah, Signity or whatever his name is, Coach Cigarettes, came over from James Madison, and he brought his whole friggin' team with him. I'm like, what the shit? I didn't know that. So, anyway, yeah, I think Notre Dame is going to be able to run the ball really well, and Leonard has done a really good job. Numbers not eye-popping, though, Harrison. I mean, I'll let you give the numbers because you did the research, but numbers are not what I thought they would be.
No, they're really not. I mean, he threw for 2,092 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Really, I don't want to say pedestrian numbers because that's just kind of Notre Dame's system is not flashy in terms of that. Jeremiah Love, their star running back, had 949 yards on the year, 134 carries and 15 touchdowns. Dan, they don't have their leading receiver has just 427 yards. And, we talk about Georgia's playmakers kind of being a problem. Notre Dame's on the stat sheet, at least, look like they got a playmaker problem over there. But hey, like you said, after the Northern Illinois loss, they've bounced back. They ran their schedule, had a really competitive game with USC to end the year. And I know USC is not the team everyone maybe thought they might have turned into by now, in year 3 of Lincoln Riley. But it is I guess, nice win nonetheless. 721 yards rushing for Riley Leonard on 14 scores. I guess, yeah, I'll take that back. Not pedestrian at all. Passing numbers, a little bit more pedestrian. The rushing, 721 yards rushing. Rightfully, let's give him his respect on that one. Dan, I think this simply, and this is going to come down to, I think, Notre Dame, as you talked about, has the bodies up front. I think they're the more talented team. I would say they probably have the better coach, in my opinion.
I think he's learned. I think you're onto something there. I think he's learned. I think Coach Freeman, made some really bad mistakes when he first got the job at Notre Dame, and I think he's learned from those mistakes. And that's so. You may continue. I agree with you.
Oh, yeah, you're good. I think he's the better coach as of right now with the better team. All the trend arrows say pick Notre Dame. So, as much as I would like to pick against the Irish and grab a pack of Signettis, I'm going to stick with Notre Dame here. That's my pick. Dan, I think so. I have Tennessee, Ohio State being the lowest scoring game of the first round. I think this is going to be the second lowest because, like you said, if there's snow, which there appears it's going to be snowy, which is going to be fun. I haven't had a problem seeing a first down marker all year long because of snow. There's going to be there should be some problems in terms of seeing that.
Then you didn't watch the Steelers-Browns game. That's for damn sure.
I watched part of it, but I did not watch all of it. I will have to take that one. I'll take the L on that one. Dan, I think Notre Dame wins this 27-13.
All right, so I'm right there with you. I have this game. The number that first popped in my head was 28-17, but I don't think anybody's kicking a field goal in this, so I'll go 28-14. I think it's a 2-touchdown game. And you're right. I don't see this being like a 40-38 game. Like, I don't see that, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know. We'll find out for sure. But it's real grass.
Yeah,
it's not turf.
I have a question for you in terms of snow. Is there advantage for either side in this? They're both in Indiana. There doesn't seem to be a distinct advantage to having snow, or does it favor Notre Dame?
No, they are pretty close together. They would be very familiar, or both teams would be equally familiar with the climate. You know what I'm saying? Like, neither one of them are changing climates. It might be 1 degree warmer, 1 degree colder at one place than the other. Actually, Notre Dame's close to the water, or not that close to the water, but it's closer to the water than Bloomington or whatever. So smoking a pack of Reds if Indiana wins it. Oh, good luck to your lungs. But yeah, I think Notre Dame wins this, and I think it's like right around a 2-touchdown game. But weather is the great equalizer. It can make you turn it over, and you cannot account for turnovers. So you could have a team that's significantly better, where I think Notre Dame is significantly better, but weather can level that out, and then turnovers can give the advantage the other way. So as we always say, Harrison, take care of the football. If you want a chance to win the game, you got to take care of the football. So, but let's move on to the Penn State game, because I think this is going to actually, like, I've heard some people say this is going to be a very boring game. I don't think it's going to be boring, because I don't think Penn State's that good. I think SMU is playing. All right, so I'm going to get this out the way. I think SMU is playing fuck you football right now. where they are out to prove everybody wrong. I think the FSU stuff that they said in the offseason really pissed some people off. And if you don't know about the history of SMU in the late 70s, early 80s, that's when they had the Pony Express, which was redubbed the Pony XS for the 30 for 30. But that was a proud program that cheated like hell. But they put together just absolutely ridiculousness. They had Craig James and Eric Dickerson in the same freaking backfield. They were recruiting I think they got 4 of the top 5 offensive linemen in the country in one recruiting class. I mean, it was absolute absurdity. Every other team in the Big 12 or whatever the hell it was called back then, it wasn't called the Big 12. It was called something else. But they all turned them in. It was because they're like Texas is we should never lose a recruit to SMU. They're clearly cheating. and that's what happened. But this is the first time that they've been good since then. And I'm really happy for them. I've joked with you guys all year long that they have become a guilty watch for me. And I think part of that goes back to Harrison's comment earlier where he was talking about not liking FSU. So, FSU had the audacity to come out and talk shit about SMU joining the conference, talking about FSU should never be in a conference with SMU. So I'm really rooting for SMU. Penn State probably has enough to get this game done. It's going to be 22 degrees and raining. The only reason I know this is because on the way home they were given temps and weather forecasts for all of the games. So 22 and rainy does not sound like a good afternoon for me. Tickets to get in are $90. So if you're in Happy Valley and you want to go sit in the freezing ass rain, go right ahead. I think it's going to be a miserable game, but I think it's going to be a competitive game. And I'll go ahead and get mine out of the way. I think Penn State probably wins this 14-7. I really – well, that can't be right because SMU they're all offense all the time. I don't know. No, that's right. That's wrong. Yeah, you're probably right, but I just don't want to see that. I'm trying to convince myself it's going to be a good game. Go ahead, Harry.
This was the heel turn of all heel turns. I had Dan penciled in for picking SMU. I have it in my comments. I was getting ready to send it because I was waiting for Dan to pick SMU because I had, and I quote, Dan is riding the Pony Express. But Dan's just going to take that away from me. So we won't be able to send that one. Dan is not riding the Pony Express. Dan has been kicked off the Pony Express. Dan.
I want them to win.
I know you do. I know. And I think America wants SMU to win. I think they are America's team this weekend. Maybe Clemson. Clemson's God's team this weekend, according to Dabo Sweeney. So they might have some competition over there. Dan, I'm with you on this. I'm with Stoddard on this. I think Penn State wins this game. I think they have absolutely no business losing this game. Just, to me, they should go in here. They should win it by at least 3 scores. That's me. That's how I feel about this game. Now, after watching the Big Ten Championship, I think Oregon showed some cracks in the Penn State armor. Oregon did a great job with they went back to the traditional spread offense. Really spread Penn State out, really took advantage of their their scheme, which was like the 4-3. They're playing the 4-3 under Tom Allen, who, former Indiana coach, by the way. Shout out Tom Allen. Oregon was hell in space. And I think that's going to be the formula, is you're going to have to be able to run it on Penn State. Penn State doesn't have very many big bodies up front. They're not very big. Abdul Carter is hell off the edge. Denny Sutton. I forget. Georgia recruited him out of high school. Also, hell off the edge. But Penn State doesn't have the big bodies to stop the run effectively. I thought Oregon did a great job just terrorizing them in space, whether it's in the run game, whether it's in the passing game. That's going to be the formula, no doubt, for beating Penn State. I think everyone's going to try and replicate that. SMU will try and replicate that, but my question is, do they have the Jimmy and Joes to do that? I say no. I don't think they do. Now, do they keep it competitive for very long? I don't know. Dan, we talked about weather
Mm-hmm.
impacting the Indiana-Notre Dame game. Obviously, I don't really have to ask you the question here. Weather, cold weather, traditionally everyone says, well, that favors Penn State. And I won't deny that. They're used to it. SMU probably hasn't played in a game sub 50 degrees this season. So I'll stick with you on this one. I think Penn State wins it. In terms of score prediction, it's tough. I'm going to go 31-10, maybe.
I think it's going to be very hard for SMU to score, especially if it really is raining and it's that cold. Their quarterback likes to move that ball around and throw it around a little bit. And Penn State has a really, really good run defense. I think it's going to be really, really hard for them to score. And I'm wondering how much Penn State is going to want to risk it for the biscuit. So it might be like I can see a 21-0 game, to be completely honest. I mean, but if it's dry, I think SMU can put points on the board. But I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one, and I'm not going to be able to give you a good score because I want SMU to win so freaking bad that I want to put points on their side, and I just don't know if they can do it.
Interesting, I guess, optic about this game. Drew Aller announced he's coming back to Happy Valley for another year for his senior season.
Then the backup quarterback has to transfer.
Yeah, now the backup quarterback's transferring, which I guess you're wondering, Penn State fans are praying that nothing happens to Aller.
I think the kid is staying, though. I think the kid is going to stay on the team until afterwards.
Until afterwards? Okay.
Yeah, because James Franklin came out and said that, I mean, I thought, like, a lot of people give James Franklin a lot of shit, but I'll give him a lot of respect for this. He came out and said that kid was in the worst position possible because he had a time limit to make a decision. He didn't want to leave, but now Allard is coming back and he has to leave, but his team is in the middle of a playoff run and he wants to be there to support his teammates, but he has to put his name in the portal because of the time limit. And it was, I mean, he used it as an opportunity to talk about what a effed up situation college football has created, which I wholeheartedly agree with, but then also take that opportunity to defend the kid and not allow the fan base to turn on him. So I got to give James Franklin a lot of credit for that. I don't know if you had a chance to hear that soundbite, but mad respect for James Franklin for coming to that kid's rescue. But he may not have needed it, but still to stand up for the kid.
It is a messed up situation. We got players having to go into the portal before the season's even over. It's still messed up to me. It's like having free agency mid-season in the NFL. Just absolute mayhem because of that. Less opportunities out there. It's not just because there's a deadline, but like you said, Stoddard, there will be less opportunities out there because teams will go ahead and stock up and get their guys right now for the next season. All right, so Dan and I are both riding, I guess, the same teams here. There was not much separation. We're both riding with Penn State. We're both riding with Notre Dame. Dan, in terms of looking forward before we wrap up for the night, of the two teams, Notre Dame and Penn State, obviously Penn State will go on if they win to play Boise State in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl, which I assume we'll both pick Penn State to win. Notre Dame would face Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl. How do you feel? Just early thoughts on how do you feel about a Notre Dame-Georgia matchup?
I mean, listen, I'm on record. If Georgia doesn't get to the championship game with that half of a bracket, something went tragically wrong. I think Notre Dame's a respectable football team, but I think Georgia's a much superior team. I mean, obviously Notre Dame's the better of the two opponents. If we somehow ended up with Indiana, I think I would be doing backflips, which would not be good for me because I'd probably die trying it. But at the same time, I think I'd be happy. And we didn't mention, I think Kirby. See, I told you this was going to be a problem. Kobe is going to pick Notre Dame to win, and I believe he's picking Penn State to win as well.
Ooh. All right. Unanimous selections over here. Just a reminder, if you are wondering why we are not talking Tennessee, Ohio State, or
on Sunday.
Yep. or Clemson, Texas. We did it on Sunday's show. Go track that down over here on the Top podcast YouTube channel. You don't have to go anywhere if you want more college football content, because we did a Sunday show and we're doing a Wednesday show. Obviously, wait till we wrap up before you leave, if you will, please. Just recap picks. Dan and I picked Texas. Kobe picked Clemson. Kobe and I picked Ohio State. Dan picked Tennessee, if I remember correctly, right, Dan?
Well, in all my pickups, I picked Ohio State, but for the show purposes, I picked Tennessee just to be different.
Then we were all unanimous on the next two games, Penn State and Notre Dame, to advance to the quarterfinals. Folks, we appreciate you for joining us here tonight. Reminder, before you leave, there is Sunday's show to go look at the first two college football playoff previews. We will be back here Sunday night, 7:30, right here, same place, same time. Hopefully with Kobe Pierce joining us to break down this weekend's action. We will begin previewing, and actually we will only preview, for the most part, we will preview Georgia's matchup with the winner of Indiana-Notre Dame. That's because Wednesday will be Christmas Day, and I don't think anybody wants to be sitting here talking football.
I will be home. So
yeah.
If you do a show, it won't be with me. But listen, hey, while we have you here, before you head out there, we have some good numbers right now. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe, share with your friends. Give us a great Christmas present. Let's pump these numbers up. We're trying to bring you more content. We added a new host to try to give you a different perspective. We want to try to grow the platform. We love interaction. Jeremiah, thank you for popping off in the comments. We appreciate the interaction. We try to be a fan-friendly show. If you have something to say, we want to get it out there. But yeah, my Christmas gift to me, hit that like, hit the subscribe, share with your friends, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Everything that Dan said, bringing Kobe on was Dan's idea to begin with. So credit to Dan on that one. Kobe has made a tremendous co-host here. Dan and I have talked about this even with Kobe. It's you get a mix of all three in terms of kind of experience here. I'm doing it more from the writing side, content creation side. Dan's doing it as a former college player himself. And then you have Kobe, someone who's been inside that very building that we're talking about over there at Georgia. So you get three perspectives. And I think all of us, for the most part, have our differing opinions. In some way or another, we see things differently, which I think makes for a great balance of the three of us. Folks, if you're looking for more Georgia content, like I said, stay right here on the Top Talk podcast. You can go find our Sunday show. But hey, you can also go find the DGD podcast with Robert Reynolds, Kobe Pierce, Dan Kiley, Keon.
Keon
Juan
doesn't
Daniels.
share his last name.
Yeah, I don't know Keon's last name, so I'm sorry.
He won't share it.
He won't share it. When he does a show, Jeremiah Side of the Classic City Sports Podcast, another great one over there. Go give them a like, follow, and subscribe. Rate them 5 stars as well. We're all 5 stars within this friend group, so we appreciate you for joining us tonight. Dan, I got your favorite cue. Oh, real quick. Merry Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you back on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Go Dogs.